Hi, my name is Andrew Robbins. I'm the founder and CEO of Mateo's Gourmet Salsa, and this is my story. I grew up with two loving parents, Brian and Laura Robbins, and my grandmother is Hispanic in origin, so my mother brought her Hispanic, authentic Mexican cuisine to our household, which we all loved. My father was an Olympic diving coach. He taught Greg Louganis into his first gold medal, and then later on was a SMU diving coach. So I grew up with the competitive drive and passion for success from my father. My mother was a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids, so she had her hands full for sure. My mother did craft shows and fairs to make a little extra money and make ends meet for our family. So I grew up also knowing hard work and hard work ethic. Here's how the real Mateo story starts. My father was obsessed with condiments, especially meaning salsa. So when I grew up, he would put salsa in his soups, on every single dish, it didn't matter. He would douse it with salsa. Freshman year in high school, my father started developing his own salsa recipe in his kitchen. Took him about 6 months to his final recipe that ended up being Mateo's Gourmet Salsa. We used to have parties all the time in high school at our house. When people would come over, we would have the fresh salsa. People would go obsessively nuts. So fast forward a couple years, I'm in college, and me and my brother were living together, and we didn't want to go home. We didn't want to blend up our own salsa, so we'd buy shelf-stable salsas at the grocery store. We kept buying different brands, hoping that it would be somewhat decent, and every single time we became very disappointed. Later down the road, after I graduated, I went into outside sales, and I never really found anything that I was super passionate about. I was very good at what I did, but at the end of the day, it wasn't really hitting home of what I wanted to ultimately do. It was about 2007 that I went on a sales call, and at the sales meeting, the lady was telling me how much she loved salsa. So I said, hey, I have an awesome salsa recipe. Would you like to try it? Just trying to help close the deal. I'll do whatever it takes. So I gave her a jar. She took it back to the office, let a couple employees try it. She later on called me, told me that she wanted 10 jars to the office. So I did, trying to help close the deal. Later on after that, I got an order for 75 jars for the office. So it clicked in my head and finally realized, oh my gosh, I really should bring this to market. So I kept on sales for the remainder of the year, handing out jars to different clients. And at the end of the day, every single client told me, hey Andrew, you should stop what you're doing and this is your ultimate goal. Like, this salsa is amazing. After much thought, I went and talked to my parents. I told them that I wanted to bring my dad's recipe to the market, which ultimately was Mateo's. In 2008, I found a local small co-packer in Grand Prairie, Texas, that ended up making my first batch because no large co-packers would talk to me because I'm a startup. I knew nothing about the industry. I was eager, I was passionate about the product. I ended up paying $2.70 a jar, which I found out later was a huge ripoff, but it didn't matter. I had product, I stored it in my garage. The first account that I landed was a local 7-Eleven down the road. I told the guy, hey, I'll do some demos, I'll help promote it. That's what I did. On my weekends, I would sit there, and then I added about 36 other 7-Elevens after that. I would do demo after demo. Found out that Walgreens, local Walgreens, can bring in new items, so I got about 36 of those. And after a while of doing demos, the public had demanded Mateo's enough times at Kroger that Kroger contacted me and asked me if I wanted to sell, and that was the huge click. So I started selling to Kroger and then doing demos for them again, and then later on landed Market Street, then Sprouts. Then my big hit in 2012 was I landed road shows for Costco. So my excitement grew. I ended up showing up to the Costco roadshow with a pallet and a half thinking that was too much product. The manager actually told me he might shut it down because it wasn't enough. I was in shock, but I had to go back to the warehouse and get more product. We ended up selling more salsa in the history of Costco roadshows during a 4-day roadshow demo. So later on, after this success, Costco brought me in their office. They sat me down. I heard the information. They tried to negotiate with me. I ended up only giving them a nickel off my price. But later on, this was the huge start to Mateo's success because of the overall public exposure. So about this same time of landing Costco, I ran into Matthew Johnson, who is now my broker at Chandler Food Sales. He convinced me that I needed his help, and I shortly afterwards realized I can't close all the accounts myself. I don't have the connections to all the buyers like he had. So this is another huge part of my growth. Something to note is I did not want an investor. I didn't want to give away any percentage of my business. I had to keep putting money back into the company. I started with $9,000, that's it. Never got a dime from an investor. I just kept reinvesting in the money. I knew I had to have cash flow for slotting fees. I just didn't want to spend marketing dollars. I wanted to spend all of my time and enthusiasm and passion on getting the product into people's mouths. So it's demos. Demos is what I help promote my company with, and word of mouth. And we kept rolling with it. Later on, after my success in 2012 of Texas Costco, I was sitting at Bardish Foods in the lab. One of the other owners of a company told me, "Hey, that's great that you got in Costco. You'll be kicked out in 3 months." That really hit home with me. Most people would get super upset. It actually fed the fire, gave me more passion and drive. Shortly afterwards, I proved them wrong. I landed the Southeast region, and then later on the Midwest region, which we still have. We're in 6 regions every day now, and we have 2 rotational regions, which is LA and the Bay Area. On top of the Costco success, we have had large success with normal retail. We landed Walmart on pretty much a national basis about 4 years ago. We're growing with them. We're national with Safeway. We're about to expand nationally in Kroger. But overall, this guy is number 8 overall in the country. We're one of the fastest growing salsa brands in the nation, hands down. I will put this salsa against any other brand in the country. We'll cut it. This is the best tasting salsa by far in the market. So here's my main selling points. I'm a single owner. I don't have any employees. I have 1 brokerage firm, 1 assistant, 1 outsourced CPA. I did this on my own. We're gonna hit $25 to $26 million in sales revenue and around $9 to $10 net profit. Now, something to note is that I have a co-packer and they're making about 42% margin. So if you have manufacturing in-house, you can take that 42% and apply it to also more net profit. Something also to note is that I don't have expertise in online, so we really haven't positioned ourselves to focus on that. So whoever takes over the brand can easily drive online sales. I just don't have the components and knowledge to do that. I focused on retail only. Something to also note is we didn't focus on food service. So food service is another huge component that whoever takes over and buys my business can actually lower the cost and be competitive. We didn't go into the food service industry because we're about 22% higher than what's out there. So in my opinion, if you can get the cost down, which you can easily win large accounts in the food service and drive business that way. I've done as much as I can on my own, and I'm hoping with the right partner, we can utilize my dream and make it an everyday household item. I would like to partner up with a company that can take Mateo's globally, and that will not change the recipe at all. I have to make sure that my customers get the same exact salsa year-round, every day, and that it doesn't change like it does with some items that get bought. In closing, I would like to thank you for the opportunity of considering Mateo's, and I look forward to working with the right partner.